Dum 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 dum. Welcome to another episode of The Hobby. We are today going to look at 3 games by Raybox. Raybox games are a special kind of games because they make use of map books to play out a short campaign of various scenarios that are set in a specific theme, a specific world, and they used sort of tactical skirmish rules to do so. So we're going to have a look at these 3 games and why these 3 will become apparent as I walk through them. So first we're going to look at Escape from Stalingrad Z, then we're going to look at Gates of Niflheim, and finally we're going to look at the newest incarnation of their map book system, which is the Cats of Mont Saint-Michel. The interesting part of the hobby is that I always show you something that I am tinkering with, that I'm homebrewing, or that I am just changing, altering the deal, so to speak, of the designer's intent with the game. Often it's thematic, it can also be rules related, and in this case it's actually purely thematic. I find no problems with the rules whatsoever, with the sole exception that the rules of Raybox games are more simulation-like, so more reminiscent of the old tactical skirmish games or the war games. And but I feel like they're getting more distilled and more refined and elegant as they move through the series. We will see in a minute. I don't have any experience with Gates of Niflheim and Cats of Mont Saint-Michel, simply because these are relatively new games, and so with Escape from Stalingrad Z, I do have some more experience, and so I can speak to that. But the rules are not the issue. The theme is what this episode of The Hobby is all about. So you see the 3 games in the background. You see Hellboy, the board game, Mythic Battles, Ragnarok, and Mice and Mystics, and you may already start seeing some connections here. For instance, Mice and Mystics has anthropomorphic animals that you play. Cats of Mont Saint-Michel, the same thing. With Mythic Battles Ragnarok, you're playing Vikings, fighting, well, almost supernatural bosses, and god bosses, of course, but also monsters, and undead, Draugr, for instance. And with Gates of Niflheim, you're doing something similar. You're fighting Draugr and other, mythological nods as enemies. And with Hellboy and Stalingrad Z, there may not be any kind of comparison right there, but we're going to get into that in a minute. But yes, these are the 3 games that we're going to talk about. Okay, starting with the first game, Escape from Stalingrad Z. Now, I do believe that this may be the first game that Raybox brought out in this manner. They brought out another game in a sort of similar vibe, a sort of a military tactical skirmish game fighting the undead, but the name escapes me in a minute, but of course I'll just put the note in below. But so what is this system? Well, first, before I start digging into Escape from Stalingrad Z, the thing that you'll notice between these 3 games is that each game gets bigger. Now, that is not a production choice per se over time, so these are not iterations that just happen to become bigger. These are actually 3 different versions of Raybox games that you can get for any of these games. What do I mean by that? So the first game, Escape from Stalingrad Z, is what we call a travel edition. That means bare minimum components. Basically the books, the maps that you need to play on, plus the tokens to play all the protagonists and the enemies. And the regular standee edition, as it says, has standees. It also has double layered boards, place your items on and your cards. And the Cats of Mont Saint-Michel is the deluxe box set, which comes with miniatures. So it's tokens, standees, miniatures, basically. The components also get a little bit of an upgrade, so hence the different sizes. But you can get those 3 editions with every one of these games. So say that you wanted Cats of Mont Saint-Michel and you just want to try it out, you're attracted to the anthropomorphic animal theme, then you can get this as a travel edition. So let's have a look at this travel edition. So when you open it up, And you'll see this format represented in each of the following games as well, because they just build upon it, basically. You would see first that you get a rulebook. Now, this is not a full 60-plus page rulebook. No, it's only the first 30 pages, because once you get to page 30 approximately, you get like narrative overview of the enemies that you're fighting, in this case zombies, and then you get the campaign. Okay, so it's a little bit past page 30, 34 in this case. The rules of the campaign, but you also get like a sheet that you can print out to keep track of the zombies that you're killing, the armory, some extra modes, and some entries. And these entries you'll see in the next few games become more prominent because the rules take less and less space in this rule book. Now, if you think that this is it, if this is all the narrative that you're going to get, think again. Oh, and of course you see the player mats or the player boards. Now, you're supposed to copy these. You don't get these in the game. So you can copy these and place your tokens and your cubes on these sheets. And you'll see in a minute how I basically reskinned this to Hellboy, because I did not care for the Second World War theme versus zombies as much as that I did the theme that I made with Hellboy. So what do you get besides this? Well, you get within the cover, by the way, this handy sort of dungeon master kind of screen, so you can actually just prop this up and see a reference of all the main rules and the armory parts and how the tactical line of sight works, for instance. The most important stuff that you'll use during the game. But then this is what attracts me to the Raybox games, is the scenario book. And the scenario book has a little bit of preloaded narrative with regards to the campaign. And then it has these maps. And each double page thereafter has a set of rules on the left and a map that you play on the right. And it just keeps on going. Oh, this is, this is, by the way, where I left off last time. So I haven't even gotten that far into it, page 5. But these are all standalone segments to in a campaign that is not very long. So if you don't like long scenario games, you might actually want to pick this up. Also because this travel edition is handy to take with you. Different scenarios, maps, you see that it has all the specifics of the scenario on it. So no need to sort of build a map with tiles and smaller little tokens on top of it and you know, spend 10 minutes or longer just setting it all up, which can have its own charm, but everything is printed on these maps. And then the specific rules, they're on the left. So if you need something that is specifically scenario bound, special rules like doors locked or things that you can find or specific enemies, then you will find it all here. And there's even like a handy little zombie pool where you put your tokens that you're defeating on there that represent the zombies. So yeah, so you see all these scenarios, and then at the very end you have like a climactic scene where you basically just fight out the final combat. Now this is really cool. I fell in love with this when I got this back in, I think, 2017 or 2019 or 2020. I just picked this up at a friendly local game store, but I did not like that the game had that theme. Basically, it did nothing for me. And so what I did, and that's kind of the point of this video, is that I ended up reskinning it. So for instance, the characters. I like the Hellboy theme very much, and I like the Hellboy game very much. And Hellboy game is just a dungeon crawler with a limited amount of scenarios. And as fun as that is, once you've played through that, there's no real sense in going back. There's not a lot of replayability for me because there's no new material. But this would present like a whole new 30 plus scenarios of adventures to go on. But now, what do you do with the theme? Because the theme is basically that you are a soldier returning from Stalingrad and that some zombie apocalypse has broken out. And so you're just trying to make it home. That's what the whole campaign is about. And you play one of these either German or Russian soldiers, or I think, is there someone else? No, it's just Russian and Germans, I think. Yeah. Who are just trying to stave off the zombie apocalypse. Now, I wanted to do Hellboy. So I basically redesigned the characters to be characters from the Hellboy graphic novel series. So for instance, I have my star team, my MVPs, Hellboy, Abe Sapien, Liz Sherman, and Roger. But I also have Kate Corrigan, I have Scott Clark, I have Sidney Leach, and I have Bud Waller as well, which are kind of the B team of Hellboy, at least in the earlier years. And essentially, the game stays the same. It's just reskinned in a way that has those characters on it. So you feel more in theme with the Hellboy universe. Now the weapons, you might think, well, they're Second World War weapons. What point is there to reuse them in Hellboy? Because Hellboy doesn't go around swinging a club or a grenade, but that's where the gear comes in that you can find. And you could find, for instance, a more Hellboy appropriate revolver, or, you know, a machine gun that he just picks up, or a hand grenade. Or maybe he just does use a club and to club around the enemies. It's very thematic. So the gear does not need to be changed. And the storyline doesn't necessarily either, with the only exception that I wanted to incorporate the miniatures as well, because this game works mostly with tokens. Now I can't really show you the tokens because I've actually already upgraded the tokens to the Hellboy characters. So you see, for instance, Hellboy is on there, and there's a question mark on the back because you draw these tokens from a cup or from a bag to see who is next, initiative-wise, but also the enemies that you encounter on the map when they get respawned. So for instance, here is an undead warrior. Here is Hecate. That would be a boss monster. Here is an undead conquistador, another undead conquistador, another undead soldier. And so you see that undead is obviously the theme going on here. So that stays in line with the Z part of Escape from Stalingrad. And in this case, I figured the overall general story is Hellboy is returning from the east and has his team with him to help him basically make their way back to a safe spot where the zombie apocalypse has not yet happened. But these zombies are not World War II themed. They are Slavic, I think, by nature. They are part of a particular storyline that you can follow within Hellboy, but they do fit in here, and that's the key point. So you take the enemies that you find in here and you copy them one-on-one with enemies that you can find in Hellboy, and that also group together to make like a nice collective of thematically linked enemies. So here's a couple of them. I'll just show them. They are painted in a way that I found was appropriate for the Hellboy board game, which is a lot of shadows and only like colored on a particular few sides. This was done out of pragmatic reasons, because there were so many miniatures and I just wanted to get the game started, but also because I wanted to flex my painting skills in painting the Hellboy miniatures in a style that befits Mike Mignola's characters in the graphic novel series. So these are the undead. So you see Hellboy, for instance, the protagonist. And so you see they're all just painted up in that Hellboy fashion. And again, this doesn't matter for Escape from Stalingrad. You can use whatever miniatures you have lying around and which you feel fit the theme of escaping this horde of enemies coming after you and surviving the story. So you can go through the story, you can still enjoy it fully and just supplant the characters that you need. I used coin capsules to put these printed enemies in there. You can also stick them right onto the tokens yourself. Now, there's a number of tokens that you get with the game. For instance, you get this gaseous cloud, and I turn that into an actual, I say a live token, but it's basically just an acrylic token that I put some goopies on with paint. And so now it looks like an actual gas cloud that you can overlay onto these nice little maps as well. Now, I also had to print out some other tokens that were necessary because the game does come with a token sheet that has like the main weapons on there and the main items that you can use. These are just tokens that you put literally on your sheet, and you know, they indicate whether you have a particular piece of gear that you can use or some supplies that you can actually use as well. There's some supplies here that are bullets, carrots, and medical tokens that I have. These deluxified tokens. So you see like a literal carrot, a bullet, and a pill. I got them for various games. I think from maybe Pandemic Legacy, I got the pill. The bullet item was something from Etsy, and then the carrot, I believe, is maybe from a Ryan Lockett game, but I'm not exactly sure anymore. But you can see that the repurposing that happens right now as I'm culling games, I'm in a phase of culling 36 games, watch the video as well, that some games I cannibalize for parts because it's just very handy to have these parts later on in games like these where you want to supplant them with actual bits and pieces that just feel more alive than a simple token. But so that is Escape from Stalingrad Z. You have the tokens, you have the character sheets that you have to make yourself, so you might as well retheme it in that style. Now let's have a look at Gates of Niflheim. Now you're in luck because we're going to do unboxings of both of these and at the same time discuss what they're all about. Now Gates of Niflheim I got at a time where I really wanted a Viking game. I thought that Hell, the Last Saga from Mythic Games was going to be my go-to Viking game, and we all know what happened to Mythic Games. Now Hell is literally in hell until it freezes over, and Don't Panic Games releases it, which would be really cool because then we have some proper Vikings. But in the meantime, I have two Viking games. I have Mythic Battles Ragnarok, and I have now Gates of Niflheim. Mythic Battles Ragnarok is a boss battler, which comes with scenarios, but not much pre-written story, even if you manage to create some emergent story. Gates of Niflheim, however.
You stand, blade in hand, on an Irish beach teeming with the undead. Hungry seas swallow by this wreck of your longship. Atop steep cliffs, columns of smoke arise into a sunless sky. A monastery burns. To either side, shambling forms close in on your small band of survivors. Raga walk, and they thirst for your souls. Ulrich Blackheart, the Shadow Ural, seeks to break free from his ancient prison, plunging the world into madness. Where your ancestors failed, imprisoning but not killing him, you must succeed. Lead a crew of Danes and Christians alike into the cursed abbey and beyond, the gates of Niflheim itself. Write your own saga now, and remember, the gods are watching.
Yes, the gods indeed are watching. They're right back there on the board of Mythic Battles Ragnarok. But anyway, Gates of Niflheim, like Stalingrad and the Cats, are solo co-op campaign games of skirmish warfare. In this case, this one set in the Norse and Christian lore of 1000 AD, play seasoned warriors striving to close the gates that border our world and the next. You go through this box of scenarios. Let's open her up. And you basically do the same as in the campaign, or you get the same as in the campaign book from Stalingrad, only a little bit more expanded, so to speak. So I see that you get maybe just one party control sheet, but okay. Feels nice, feels nice and sturdy, but you only get one, so probably you have to make some copies or put a plastic sheet over here. These game components, I have actually gone through them, to be fully honest, and I've already removed the plastic sheet that was, for instance, around these standees, but you could easily put this in the plastic sheet and write with a whiteboard marker on top of it, and then just erase it afterwards. That is a way of doing it. I like the tactile sensation of a pencil on paper, so I'll probably just use this, not even bother to copy it, really. Now, these are the dual layered player boards that I was talking about. And they're not very spectacular. Like, there's nothing on the background, but and on the front they look pretty bland, but that is because they're fully empty. You're supposed to put like little pins in here to keep track of various stats like your health or your experience or supplies. You put your weapons in here, your ready hand and your offhand. Gear items you can put in here, your character, for instance, maybe some skills here, I'm going to guess, and a status die that you roll. And you got 4 characters, which probably is the recommended amount of playing. Some baggies. So these are the pins that you actually put into that board. Let me try one, see if this actually goes nicely. Yeah, just nice and snug. The holes are actually slightly rounded or curved on the top, so you can like slot it in very nicely. You don't have to like jam it in and damage the board. So that's really nice, and they rest easily. They don't fall out. So maybe you can even like store it afterwards and not worried that they'll move around. And maybe even, let's see if you can put them in the bag. No, you can't put them in the bag. That's not what they're meant for. But if you have baggies lying around, like any good hobbyer, then you'll probably have enough bags to do that with. Let's see, we got some standard 12-sided dice. I like that the game uses 12-sided dice. It's my favorite type of die, to be honest. They roll so much nicer than most other dice. Like a D20 is fine, but it has too many options on it, too big of a range. A D6, but too little. D4 just doesn't roll at all. I like D12s. They give you enough options. Then there's these dice. I'm not sure exactly what they are for. There's a lock on them. There's some numbers. It's an axe. Maybe they are the status die. A little silicone patch. I like that they're now silicone patches and not baggies anymore. I don't know why, but okay. So this is what you would get with the in-between version. So this is again tokens. That would be miniatures. With this size box, you get standees. So Draugrs on there, double-sided. They punch out really nice. This is a Bogmar. It's good printed. Now, what I like to do with standees, if I really, really like the game and I don't have any option to go for miniatures, is I also paint the sides of the cardboard. I know that goes overboard for most people, but if you just painted this white and you put it then down on the table, for some reason, you'll notice how much difference that makes. It just looks so much better. It's very weird, but anyway. Okay, so here are the pictures that you place on the board. So here's Bjorn, for instance. Let's place Bjorn on his board, shall we? There you go. Hey, Bjorn. See, and the nice thing is, it doesn't fall out. Unless you are enraged like a berserker and you go, I'm so enraged. Oh, okay, now it fell out. Okay, so no double-sidedness in terms of difference, but, you know, they could have done something with that, like extra bloodied or something. That would have maybe been nice, but there you go. And then you've got all these other characters. So you got Bjorn, you got Killian, Irish, Frida, Odd, Aliator, Brynhildr, Skottak, Ulfur, Dalbak, Sangrider. Okay. And then here, okay, so these are the ones that go at the bottom here. Weapon crafts. I guess they are also specific, maybe. Maybe not. Well, here it says Rhine Maiden and Valkyrie. So maybe they are specific to the specific character. But who says that Dalbak can't be a Valkyrie? We're not sexist here. Okay, so we have some items here. Now, what I remember from Stalingrad is that not all items are represented. I don't know if that's still the case, but I could see how they don't want to print like endless tokens for everything, that they just ask you to write it down or something. But nice little coin. Coin. You like coins. Maybe a good as a first player coin. Or maybe you have a luck coin or something. So this, exactly the same as the Get Up. So my guess is that this is what you would get if you just bought the travel edition of Gates of Niflheim. Let's have a quick look in here. More tokens. My guess is then that these are maybe, yeah, that will make sense that because the standees are in this one, that these are also the extra tokens that you get. So these would be, let's have a quick look here. So maybe you don't get any tokens at all for weapons normally, or maybe this sheet is in a different format inside here when you just buy the travel edition. But yeah, I recognize these small little tokens that you place, the doors that you place on the map. The doors are just very simple standees of their own kind. So you just place them like that. Now this is quickly turning into a tutorial of how to assemble the game, but the very pragmatic use of how to create a table presence with it, with just tokens. Got some fire here, but I like to use like the fire miniature from Hellboy. It's nice. This is like one of my favorite all-time miniature or enhancements in a game because I use this for almost for everything. Okay, so then we got some, again, some tokens if you choose to play with tokens instead of standees. Now, for any content creator, I would say please put your standees down flat or use tokens like this. It's better to demonstrate online. I don't do any playthroughs on my channel that as you may know already. But otherwise, I would not play with miniatures necessarily or standees that are straight up, but just present something from the top and then use these tokens. Now I'm giving courses in how to do content creation. Jeez, who is this guy? Okay, I'm going to leave the Tome of Knowledge just for now because here's the Dux Disciplinam, which is new, I feel like, to this system because it is a onboarding document or a read me first. So I feel like this is a tutorial of how you get into it. So you do see like the components that you have in the game. You see a very unhealthy looking bishop who has not eaten their veggies. Some core concepts, scenario 1, and you dig right into it. I love that. I love this onboarding of a game like this because tactical skirmish games can get very simulation-like and very complex. But this just basically, second scenario, this basically just guides you through all the concepts of it. I love it. Very nice. Paths Unknown. Move your own adventure. I think this is like an imprint of Raybox that follows a certain guideline of principles with regards to the design. Okay, so the rule book, the Tome of Knowledge, in other words, and you can see that everything is lovely done in the theme of that game, and I love that because it just gives it like a whole different new vibe, even though my guess and what I've seen so far is that 80 to 90% of the rules are exactly the same as the previous game. So if you know how to play Stalingrad Z, you know how to play this, which is just a bonus. It's like a shorthand. I know that there's going to be tweaks in between each of the games. I can't verify it for sure, but I feel like Cats is much simpler already just by looking at the player dashboard than this, for instance, which makes it also suitable for a younger audience. But it's all bonus. It's all gravy, as I call it, because it makes the mechanics melt away or distilled to their bare basic elements. And you can focus on the theme. You can focus on telling your story. Now, this obviously shows that how complex and how old-fashioned really the tactical skirmish game can be, where it's trying to simulate every single item that you have, every single weapon that you have, which is nice for, as I call them, grognards, people who really dig at that kind of stuff. But like for the casual gamer getting into these games, it may not be. And so that's where the Cats come in, I think. So undead types. Now, again, here, I would reskin it with the Ragnarok miniatures, but I don't have to reskin it that much because the theme between Hellboy and Stalingrad is much larger than between Ragnarok, which is just a Viking game, and Niflheim. Like, I may not be able to find a Bogmater necessarily, but if I find an archer, great. If it does what this Bogmater does. Draugr, I know that this Draugr is in there. Like, if I grab these, I think these are actually Draugrs, or undead maybe. I'm not exactly sure, but like, these could fill in for the Draugrs. And if not, then these could fill in. Like, and they're great miniatures. And I don't have to like even use standees. I could just use these. All I have to do is basically replace the image, if they may be on tokens or otherwise, that you draw for initiative or you draw for whatever purpose to discover what enemy it is, with the image that I find in the Ragnarok rulebook with these characters. And I just have to like print them out, paste them on there, put them in a coin capsule, and done. So there's other characters. There's the bishop, which I might like transpose onto Grendel, for instance. Like, Grendel is such a good character. And actually, I'm surprised if Grendel is not even in here. Grendel is not in there, but a troll is. There's Ulrich Blackheart, the Shadow Jarl. But yeah, you could, you know, mix and match. You can put any kind of character in there that you want. I might even like decide to put like a god in there from Ragnarok that you ultimately fight against. But then again, I'm also reserving the gods and these characters for my own boss battler, as you've seen in the previous segment of The Hobby, where I'm trying to make a boss battler out of essentially a tactical skirmish game that is Ragnarok. And then here, start the entry. So this starts already at page 29. You can see that the games are steadily becoming more narrative, and you can see all these events taking place. And these, again, are the events that take place above. Holy moly, is that a dragon? There's a worm right there. I might have to dig into my True Dvang box to get a worm. But you can see that these are all great narrative parts. There's descriptions of the characters. But there's more, of course, in the actual map book, which I think is so great. Again, here's the reference guide to get you through the most bare basic of the rules. And I feel like already you're starting to see dead space here, which again, to me, is a sign that it's becoming more elegant in its design. So kudos to you, Raybox Games, for that. But again, the familiar left-hand side with rules and the right-hand side with a map. Now, I do feel that the art is sometimes a little sketchy. It's getting a little too simplistic for my tastes. I would like it a little bit more realistic than what you see here, for instance. but art is expensive, so I get where they're coming from. Like, this is just lazy. I mean, come on, man. I know it's a blizzard, but wow, that's an excuse. You know what also is a blizzard? This is a blizzard. There. You can just put that on there. Now you got a true free-form tactical skirmish game. Just use rulers. Nah, I'm kidding. Now this is cool. And mind you, it's a story also that you create with these tactical skirmish games. That's what tactical skirmish games excel at, whether it's Core Space or Maladin, whether it's any kind of game where the combat really doesn't matter and it's more the events that arise from it. Emergent story can be really awesome. And then the end scene, of course. That is Niflheim. Finally, we have Cats of Mont Saint-Michel. This came with a complimentary little cat hat. Very nice. Probably give this to my daughter. Very cat themed. This is what you get when you get a deluxe box. And this is what it looks like on the side with compartments for the main box. As you see right here with Niflheim, this would be what you get with that. And it comes with extra boxes for miniatures, because that is the main attraction of this game.
The island fortress of Mont Saint-Michel has long guarded France and those within its walls. Now, amid invasion and rebellion, it must stand strong once more against an unseen enemy that creeps through shadows, cracks, and drains, bringing hunger and death in its wake. The hour is dark and the situation grave, but not all is lost. The Cats of Mont Saint-Michel stand watch and will rise to the defense as they have done in the past, and if this ragtag pride of strays and misfits are not the legendary heroes of yore, that is only because their time is about to come.
So the great thing about these games is universal. Quick setup, compact play area, well, award-winning Paths Unknown system. I don't know what awards they've won, but if anybody knows, let me know in the comments. Choose your own adventure style campaign. So this is what you would get. The sleeve box, the main box, and then the extra boxes here. Now you see, this is the hero set. They all come with their own sleeves, which is very nice. It's very, very stylishly done. The production quality is, I would say, a 7 out of 10, an 8 out of 10. It's not bad. I don't know if I'm a fan of this foam, for instance, but the miniatures are good quality. Like they feel sturdy. They don't feel lightweight, like for instance, Shadows of Brimstone miniatures or Mythic Battles Ragnarok. They feel sturdy. They feel like they're made with good plastic, and the detailing on it is really well done. I do like the miniatures of here. And as you can see in the background, Mice and Mystics fits right in. If I were to grab one of the enemies of Mice and Mystics, you can see the scale is pretty much the same. I mean, this guy's hunched over, so. Here's the Vermin set. So here you get into the enemies that the cats are holding at bay. And you can see there's a nice array of enemies to choose from. And of course, it's always nicer to paint up a character like this and get really right into the story. Now you can see that his staff is bent, which is an unfortunate byproduct of it being packaged the way that it has been. If I compare it to like a cockroach of this game, I think it's cockroach, or I'm not really good at insects, and the centipede of Mice and Mystics, you can see they're the same size. And so if I wanted to play with those miniatures and Mice and Mystics and introduce them into this game of the cats, it's totally doable. In fact, I could just use this bonus storage box that is completely empty with places in it to put those miniatures in here. And when I'm done with Mice and Mystics, mind you, there's a lot to be done with Mice and Mystics. That campaign is ginormous, and that's not even including the expansion. But yeah, you could just keep on using your lovely painted miniatures in this game as well. Here's the accessory box set. So this is what you would not get if you bought the travel size box or the standee box alone. So you would get these lovely little cards that you place in your player board. And now you can see that the player board is super simple. It's the same on both sides, actually. Again, it's kind of an oversight. You could have done something with the other side, lowered their scores for if they're wounded or something. But So look at this. This is so much simpler than the other two games. And so this is definitely an entry level where you just have your health, you have a weapon, an armor, maybe some items. That's it. You get 4 boards. But again, the back, there's nothing on the back. Nice slot to put cards on the side. But there's nothing on the back, which gives it, for me, a rating of 7, especially when you look at the inserts. For instance, inserts are not like super deluxe or anything. The tokens are serviceable, but nothing to write home about. These tokens, they replace cardboard tokens that you have. Just change them into wood, which is a little bit nicer to place them on your board, but it's kind of up to you. I would personally say that unless you really wanted these miniatures, for whatever reason, to play in this game or backwards compatible into Mice and Mystics, if you wanted to continue playing adventures there, or you wanted to play the true tactical skirmish game Burrows and Badgers, which you can play out on a terrain like that, then you might want to have those miniatures. There's also Wander Home, the RPG book that you can look through and choose adventures of and play them out in a very simple RPG setting. Also, again, using these miniatures. So you can see that thematically, these miniatures all are reserviceable in other games. Okay, I'm quickly going to go through this one because there's not much else to see then. Again, tokens and standees. You got your rule book. You can see that it's getting simpler and simpler, which I personally like, because then you have more time to read the narrative, to do world building, to get into events. So if anything, I would play this first, then that one, and then that one. Again, there's only one sheet here, an adventure log. Like, why can't they just print out like a pad of 12 or put at least like 5 or 6 in them? But okay, the adventure book, it looks already a little bit more creative with a little bit more space given to the actual tactical skirmish or a whole page with, of course, less rules because it's less complex. Again, the artwork is serviceable, but a little simplistic. But I would say it gives you a lot of bang for your buck if you just want a small box, small price game, essentially. Now, these would be the cards that come with this version. You probably wouldn't even get them if you bought the travel version. And I just realized that there is no travel version in here. Whereas Niflheim came with the travel version with the stuff on top. This basically does away with the travel version, at least within this production. I don't know exactly if there is a travel version. I think there is, but you wouldn't get these, I think. But don't hold me to that. I do like that they actually reprinted this on the back. So what I might do is take these boards that are bare on the back and actually just stick this onto the back, so you actually have some extra story to read. But if you just had these, get yourself some silicone bumpers or cut up some little plastic placeholders, and you can put them on the corners of your sheet like that. And then when you put a card on there, then at least you don't have to like try to dig it off or shove it off. Or this is what I do with sheets that have no depth to them. So it's easier to pull stuff off. Obviously you can do whatever you want, but I find these silicone bumpers to be very excellent in raising the bar, I made a pun, on these kind of sheets that otherwise lack some practicality. I do like that they, you can hear that they're sort of linen covered. Nice. Okay, let's look at some cards. These are, I think, the enemies. So you see the cardinal. You can see how simple these guys are. And now they come on cards. So no longer the tokens that you see there, at least not in this edition, but you actually have little cards with artwork on them, which I kind of like. So I guess these are loot cards. You can find some coins, maybe an ambush. Oh, sorry, no loot for you today. Today you have an ambush. Steve of the Co-op Guild would not like this card. You would have something to say about this. Or booby trap. But you know, it's all thematic. Healing draughts. More gear. It's a lot of loot, actually. Wow. How much loot are we talking about? We're talking about tons of loot. These are almost all loot cards. Nice. So there's, what are these? Event cards, maybe? Yeah, maybe. Don't know. We'll find out. As I always say, keep exploring. Wait, that's not the end of the video. So these are the characters, I assume, that you're playing. Athena, yeah, these look like the characters. So my guess is that these are narrative upgrade cards or skills that they have. There could have been art on this, but I can see that it was pretty expensive to probably pay for the art, so they just kept it with text. Again, 7 out of 10 for production. I wouldn't give it much higher than that. Standard D12 dice. You got another coin. And that's it. So if you are in the mood for a very simple, elegant, yet fun, short campaign with anthropomorphic animals, or Vikings, or zombies, or you wish to reskin it as your own Hellboy game or Trudvang game, or your own Ragnarok game, or maybe something else than Vikings. Maybe you want to do Greek heroes and you use the other Mythic Battles box, Pantheon, or Mice and Mystics, which fits almost seamlessly with this game. Whatever your theme choices may be, these games are simple, they're easy to play, and I find my love for tactical skirmish games only going up because of Raybox's adventures. That was it. So go and explore these games, and even if you never play any of Raybox's games before, or ever will, whatever you do, keep exploring. Dum, dum, dum.